with a family, 3 kids, a wife, a house payment, car. You guys get the idea.
You
It's
mean you
not
didn't factor
just,
that into your perfect plan?
oh yeah, yeah.
If you hadn't committed to having another path that you built for 2, 3 years in the interim while you were thinking about this, like when you lost your job, you would have had nothing and you have to start interviewing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, start measuring everything. I think that's super important. I wish I would have started that a lot earlier. I didn't. I was just shooting at the wind and like, let me reach out to these people. And now
A
what?
lot of coaches think that you should start putting content out there, but they don't know how to have a conversation with people. They don't know how to
Yeah.
keep the conversation going. They don't know how to take it to the next step. And that's why it's so valuable to do the outreach to networking level one. Coaches Nation, welcome to another edition of the Coaches Journey podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez, and with me today is a member of CMC, an ex-member of CMC who's graduated since, but has just gone full-time coaching recently. It's Carlos Brigante. Welcome to the podcast, Carlos. I'm excited to have you with us today.
And I'm excited to be here, excited to share my story, hopefully inspire some people to continue with their coaching because there is light at the end of this tunnel. And it is very rewarding. And
Yeah.
you will gain a lot of skills and knowledge doing so. So, yeah, I'm excited to share my story and my experiences here. So,
Yeah. Well, I love that you said you'll gain a lot of skills and knowledge by going on the coaching journey, right? Because like I think
yeah,
that is like one of the things that I love the most about coaching is it makes you better in so many different ways just by trying to build a coaching business. There's so many
yeah,
pieces of the puzzle that actually serve you as a human, as a leader, as a professional, as somebody who will be skilled in other industries just because of your skills as a coach. So I really appreciate you saying that the journey will build your skills. So I'm excited to hear a lot more about your journey, Carlos.
yeah.
And like maybe talk about like the struggles you had before you joined CMC, and like what was really some of the hardest stuff that you were going through, or maybe
Yeah.
some rough moments that you had.
Yeah, sure. Well, just to add on to what you were saying there, it is
Go ahead.
definitely the person that you become to become a coach, right? That journey and becoming that person, which means learning all those skills that you need to become that. That is the exciting part. It's a challenge, but once you get to that point, it is very exciting because you got all of these marketable skills now, right? Not just for your business, but in other aspects of your life is what I'm seeing. Is like it's not just these skills that I'm acquiring to have a successful coaching business or have a business in general, but other aspects of my life that I gained these skills that help me in other aspects. So
Yeah.
with that being said, there was definitely a lot of struggles in the beginning, in my coaching journey, right? I don't even know where to start because there was so many. I went into the coaching journey just wanting to help people, particularly men that had gone or that were going through something that I've went through, right? So I went through a very challenging time in my life, and I was able to pull out of this challenging time, and other people saw me, rise out of this and basically fix myself. And they started asking for help. And so I started helping them in this aspect. And then I found out, hey, I could monetize the knowledge that I know. I can monetize this and actually help people. And so that's when coaching came about, but I didn't even know how to get started because my background is in IT, information technology. And so I didn't know any aspects about like the business of coaching, right? The
Mhm.
sales, the marketing, uh, even with coaching itself, I didn't know like how to coach a person. I just was basically sharing my knowledge of what I went through, and they kind of put it together and say, okay, well, I'm going to try this and see if it works, you know. But I didn't have a framework. I didn't have any set standards or any stages that I wanted to bring my client through. So I was very lost. I just knew that I wanted to help people. Not go through the same pain that I went through to give them that shortcut, you know.
Mhm.
So I needed to find direction, right? I needed to find direction within the business side of coaching, how to actually set that up, and
How did you
actually how to
figure that
learn
out?
how
How
to
did you
coach.
figure out that you needed direction? I'm just really curious. Like some people they know they are struggling, but they don't know that they need direction. Like did you have a light bulb moment, or did you talk to somebody, or did you just bang your head long enough against things? Like, how
Yeah,
did you figure out that you needed help and guidance and support?
yeah. Well, so when I was going through the struggle, right, and so the struggle was in my relationship, also in my drug addiction, right, which was affecting my relationship, which was affecting everything. Um, I hired a coach. I hired a relationship coach, right? And this gentleman, like, this is why I believe so much in coaches because he helped me pull through that season of my life, right? Save my relationship, save my health, just really changed my life after that. And so I knew I was like, man, this is very powerful stuff. Coaching is very powerful. And basically, after I gone through that coaching, um, like I said, people saw what I have gone through and the changes that I made, and they were asking me for help, asking me for advice. And so I went back to my first coach and I said, hey, you know what? I want to be like you. I want to coach people like you coached me. I don't know how to do that, right? I want to be able to do that. People are asking me for help and I want to be able to help them, but I don't have a structure. So he was actually not just my first coach as far as like coaching me as a client to get out of that season of my life, but I asked him and he wasn't a business coach. I just said like, I want to do what you're doing, you know? And he said, well, I can coach you in that. You can hire me for 3 months and I'll show you how to get clients. I'll show you how to start the business. And so I hired him as a coach. I hired him as a mentor. So that was the first time I was thinking like I need someone to show me how to do this. And I need someone that's seasoned in this already. Right. So what better person that's seasoned than someone that I've already worked with, right?
Hmm.
So that was the first stage of me asking for help. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
love that journey because like it's nothing like somebody who's been coached and has been had a difference who wants to show people the power of the thing that they experience. And the thing I loved also is that you've been through some adversity in your life and you've also pushed through that struggle and people saw changes in you, right? And
Mhm.
people came to you because of those changes that they're seeing. Like people basically, for lack of a better word, you inspired people with your struggles, right? You inspired with your ability to overcome. And I think that's a really powerful thing for people to remember that your life is actually the message that people hear
Yes.
in many ways, right? That's actually like the part of the marketing that cannot be replicated. The part of the, who you are and who you've become and who you're becoming is something that is going to reach and resonate and inspire people, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's something like, a lot of beginner coaches, they're like, so where do I start coaching? How do I start coaching? Or what do I even coach? I know I want to be a coach. And my suggestion to them is think of something that you've struggled with in the past and that you've overcame, a challenge
Yeah.
that you had, whether if it's losing weight, whether it's getting rid of an addiction, or if it's fixing your relationship or starting a business or whatever that is. And because you have gone through that, you're already several steps ahead of somebody, right? Which means you can guide someone through that process and help them not take the incorrect steps that you've probably made. You can give them a shortcut, right? So for any beginner coaches or anyone thinking about coaching, this is what I would say if you need to pick a niche. Obviously, I changed since then my niche, but that is what I felt comfortable in because I've already been through that. So, you've already been through the fire. What more of bringing someone else through that fire, right? I felt more comfortable talking, but I've since then I've definitely refined my coaching since then.
Yeah, and it's okay to change niches, right? Like niches
Yeah,
are really interesting. It's like you go through this niche evolution process, right? You start somewhere and you
yeah,
think that's the thing, and you realize, oh,
yeah,
actually, no, it's this thing, and you realize, no, it's this thing. That's usually like a lifelong journey for coaches, that
yeah,
they keep on evolving their niche, and that's partly because you keep on evolving as a person. The struggles you get new struggles at new levels in related to that niche and other niches, and so then you sort of differentiate and evolve in the direction that your own like calling seems to be, right? Like that's part of the niche evolution. It's also true about our careers in every industry. It evolves
hmm
and changes and you can't really predict it all, right? Maybe you can climb the ladder at a single company, but most careers aren't just that. They're like switching companies, they might be switching industries, they might be switching roles. I know I used to work at General Motors and the CEO of GM had like worked across the company in every possible function, before they eventually rose up to become a CEO. And you never know where your career can evolve. And as a coach, it's even more unstructured than it
yeah,
is corporations. So I really like hearing that,
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yeah. And what adds on to that too is like the skills that you gain through this journey, like now you have this skill. Now you could coach someone to gain that skill. So maybe it's totally out in left field. It's like I've had people reach out to me too, and they were like, Carlos, I want to, I had the same exact story that happened to me. One of my clients reached out and was like, hey man, I want to do what you're doing. I'm like, wow, deja vu, and I said, and we talked, and he's like, man, I want to start a coaching business as well too. And so we talked, and I was like, well, this is what I've learned through this process. And so, but going back to what we said, if you gain new skills, you can lead someone through that. If you went through a challenge, you could lead someone through that challenge as well too. So there's, like you said, it's very diverse. You can go different ways, depending on where you want to go in
Yeah.
this journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I also really want to congratulate you on going full time. Really excited
Yeah.
about that. Can I ask you about like a little bit of what led to that and like what conditions did you put in place to be able to go full time? Because like there's a transition for most people to do that, right? So,
Yeah.
like maybe you can tell us a little bit what you can about, did you have another job and did you like how much income did you replace or percentage wise or like, was there other things that you did before you made the jump? Like, did you need reserves? Did you have like personal family impacts to think about? Like, what were you thinking about and what did you put in place?
Yeah. Well, I had the perfect plan, right? And we know how the perfect plan goes, right? It never turns out that way. So I had this plan, and so I got into CMC. I believe it was I first started. I made my decision to become a coach in September 2022, right? And then I got into CMC July 2023.
Why did you join CMC and all that in that at that time?
Well, I got a lot from my mentor, right? I got a lot from my mentor, but I knew that in a group environment that you would get not just the perspective or the aspects from one person, but you would get the collective wisdom of a group, right? And I knew that was very important. I knew I needed more than just one person's perspective or one person, and that's what I was seeking. And I think what really attracted me to CMC is like, you get in some of these masterminds and it's like, okay, it's specifically about opening a business. It's just about the business, or it's specifically just becoming a better coach and knowing how to coach, but CMC seemed to have put both of those together, right? So, you talk about how to open the business, the different aspects of a coaching business, right? But then again, we also talk about being a better coach and coaching people to a certain objective, right? And then the coaching chains and the real life coaching sessions that were involved in CMC, those helped a lot. So it wasn't just being, like starting a business, but it was also becoming a better coach, right? It wasn't one or the other. So, and also the collective wisdom of everybody in there, I think was very valuable in all of those meetings. So that's what I was seeking. I was seeking more knowledge, and not just from one particular individual. I wanted to seek a sea of knowledge, a vast sea of knowledge, and so that's what I was seeking in a coaching mastermind, and that's what I was seeking when I joined CMC. So
Awesome. Awesome. But yeah, keep going
yeah.
with about what you had to put in place. Continue with that
Y-
story.
Yeah, yeah. So my plan was, okay, join CMC July 2023, and the plan was I'm going to become a full-time coach January 14th, 2024, right? So that's my birthday, right? I said I'm going to give my birthday present to myself on January 14th of 2024. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go full-time as a coach, right? Well, January 2024, January 14th, 2024 rolled around, and I wasn't even close to being a full-time coach at the time, right? Um, so, I was kind of upset at myself, but I learned a valuable lesson that you cannot put a timeline on success, right? You can't put a timeline on success.
Did
And
you
so
feel like you were closer, or did you feel like
oh,
could you
yeah, I
tell a
was definitely.
difference? Like tell me like where you were at. Like what did it mean to be like I wasn't even close? Like what was that? What did that actually mean? Where were you by that point?
Yeah, yeah. So I was definitely closer. I definitely learned a lot more skills, but with a family, three kids, a wife, a house payment, car, you guys get the idea.
You
It's
mean you
not
didn't factor
just,
that into your perfect plan?
oh yeah, yeah. It was factored in, but the financial planning what didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
So obviously, before you do the transition over, you need to financially plan that. And the plan was, at least 9 months of expenses, right? 9 months of expenses saved up, and at least a year of an emergency fund, right? That was the goal, and then we can think about, the smooth transition was going from, full time in my IT company to part time, and then eventually full time coach. That was the plan, right?
Mhm.
So that didn't go exactly that.
Yeah.
So
It's Mike Tyson. He says, like, you always have to have a strategy, and it's great until you get in the ring and get punched in the face.
and then you get punched in the face, and then everything changes around. But that
Yeah.
that 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 right there is where you got to learn how to pivot, and you got to learn to adapt to the situation, right? And I think that just built, being that it didn't come out that way or it didn't happen that way, I had to adapt. Um,
I just want to
so
also like acknowledge you here, Carlos. Like that's a very normal journey for a coach. Things don't go the way you
mm,
expect because you don't know what you
yeah,
don't know. You can't see what you can't see, and you can't
yeah,
predict what you don't have any basis for predicting, right? And
yeah,
and so things may not go the same way you want them to go. And also you're facing as a coach a lot of those emotional barriers in doing some of the things that you may be uncomfortable doing or that you need to practice and to get more reps. And so it's hard to know how long things will take, right? But I do think it's good that you had like a goal in mind that you could progress towards. Even if you don't hit that goal, you made a significant amount of progress towards that goal, right? And so like I want people to know, like, if you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, I've been trying this for a long time. There are layers that you got to go
the
through,
layers.
the layers, right? And you never know how many layers somebody has. Somebody might come in with a lot of layers already worked on. Somebody might come in with like so many layers left. So you can never judge a coach where they are because you don't know what their layers are, right?
Mm,
And so I just
yeah,
want everybody listening today to like recognize there's so many different layers that you have compared to somebody else. If you're comparing yourself, well, how slow or fast you're going to somebody else. No, I want you to start thinking about like how are you continuing to progress and make the work that you need to do for you to make this work, right? So I'm so glad you brought up that example, Carlos, because I want other people to hear that. It's not as simple as like setting the plan in place because then you got to deal with
yeah,
the layers, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's never clear cut, and I mean, what it would be too easy if it was, right?
yeah,
Uh,
right.
but yeah, there are definitely layers in place that you need to learn. And I'm a firm believer that when the time's right, it'll happen. You just got to keep on taking that next best step forward, and that's exactly what I did. I just kept on taking those steps, and I just saw my progress more and more. So besides the financial planning, there was also a certain number I wanted to hit every month as far as revenue, right?
To be
And
to be confident in switching, you mean to full
to be
time?
confident, yes,
Yeah,
to be confident in switching
gotcha.
into full time. And so around this time, around the January 2024, it was kind of hit or miss. I was hitting that number, then I wasn't. But this was way better than it was months ago because
So
I
it
was
wasn't
I wasn't even close.
consistent, is what you're
It
the point
was
you're
it,
making is it
it
wasn't consistent.
exactly. It wasn't a
Okay.
consistent hitting of this number, right? Um,
Yeah, that's also very normal
it's yeah,
for
and it was
entrepreneurs.
yeah, it was kind of heartbreaking because it was like, man, okay, like I got it this month, so next month should be the same or better, right? And then you don't hit that number next month, and then maybe the month after that you double that number, but then you have 2 3 months just dry, right? So it's very normal. Um, but at towards the end of 2024, I would say September, October, November, and December, I was hitting this number consistently. I hit it for like 4 or 5 months straight, and I knew something like I was like, man, I found something here. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, man, I think I've hit another level. I've uncovered another layer in this coaching business, right? Um, the thing is that I didn't have the financial backing yet. I didn't have the 12-month emergency fund. I didn't have the 9 months of expenses yet. We were close, but we weren't there exactly, right? So I wasn't so confident
And you were
in
still in
just,
your job?
yes, still working full time in my job. But the thing that I saw was that this number that I wanted to hit every single month was, 4 or 5 months straight, right? And I had that system down. I was like, wow, I can consistently do this. I learned the system of doing that. So we fast forward into January, right? 17th of 2025, this year, a
It's
couple months
just
ago.
after your next birthday.
Yeah, just after my next birthday. So it wasn't to 2024, but on the 17th of the January 2025, I made the transition into full time. Now, the thing is, it wasn't part time and then full time, right? As a coach, it wasn't part time IT then full time. My IT job that I've worked for 18 years let me go. They cut me loose, right? After 18 years. And I knew that was a sign. That was a sign for me. It was like,
Yeah.
now I'm all in.
Yeah, they burnt
Now
your
I'm all
boats,
in.
as they say. Sometimes they say you need to burn the boats. Like somebody else can burn them
They
for you.
they
So,
they they, they did it for me. So that was a sign. So the,
wow.
the financial backing wasn't there, but we had 8 months of expenses, and we had several months of emergency funds. So it wasn't the number that we had, but I was hitting the numbers every single month for 4 or 5 months, and they burned the boats for me. But I already knew the thing was that if you measure everything, right? And this is very important for any coaches, is you have to measure everything, because once you measure everything and you have the numbers of how many times you're reaching out, how many proposal calls you're doing, how many discover calls you're having, and how many of those turn into actual clients, you'll be able to predict the future, right? Because at this particular time, I knew that if I got 11 proposals, I would get one high paying client, right? And now that I'm not working an 8-hour job, I could double that number. I could triple that number if I really wanted to,
Now you
right? So
turn it
you
into
got
a
to,
faucet, basically, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I built a system around that. I was like, I need to get more people on proposal calls in order for that to happen. You know, that's where the confidence came in, is that, and is just measuring all those numbers, right? And knowing the effort that I needed to put in is going to equal this at the end, right? And I saw that for several months straight. That was the aha moment for me. And so I wouldn't say, I was confident, that I can that it can happen. And here I am several months after January, and
How
I'm
is your
I'm still running
family
with it.
feeling about this? Like as you were talking about doing it, or I like now, like when your job, let's say when your job got canned or whatever,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it,
well,
got canceled.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you said like this is the plan.
Well, let me tell you, my wife is still on shaky grounds right now, right? Because she's so used to just getting that check every 2 weeks. She's a firm believer in, like, we get a check every 2 weeks, and it's dependable. You see it all the time.
The mindset
As where,
shift.
yeah, it's for me, I see the numbers, and I have the system in place, so I have a lot more confidence. But I think it's going to take a while for that to sink in. Like, hey, it's consistently here, and we don't count it by month, right? We take the sum of the year, and when we see the revenue for each month, right? And but she's I wouldn't say she's still skeptical, but she's she was kind of nervous when they let me go, because it was that
That's fair.
consistent check. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's totally fair. You got a
yeah.
family to feed too, right? So
Y-
if you're the primary earner, like what is in her mind is likely that there's a risk here that I don't understand or really relate to, that I've
mhm.
never had to worry about in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like if just like me, you came from corporate, and I worked in IT as well for a long time,
Uh,
and so like there's a stability of having a job that like most of the employed world like takes for granted until they
mhm.
leave to become an entrepreneur. And then you're like, oh my God, what is this? No check coming in. It took me a long time
Yeah.
to even adapt to the fact that there's no check. And sometimes I still feel like I'm living like sometimes in a corporate mindset that I'm actually an entrepreneur. I forget, oh yeah, there's no check coming in. Got to keep on working. So,
Yeah.
like it's easier to not think about those risks sometimes. And so, there's actually a lot of value to having a job and that stability and that certainty. Certainty, I say, knowing that jobs get canceled all the time.
Yeah.
But the ultimate confidence you're gaining is the skills to be able to create value in a new world where you don't know if your job's going to be there, right? And so I think there's a challenge for most of the corporate people that, all of us we came from, is that they don't know what that means. But what it feels like is very risky. It's like, what
Mhm.
if we, can't make money? So that's why entrepreneurs need to get, insurance for that kind of thing. Or you also need to have an emergency fund. And I have to also just commend you, Carlos, because two things you said that are really, really valuable to entrepreneurs for those listening to the podcast today. Number one, you said you measure everything. So you actually have a lot more certainty because you're measuring. And in IT, they do a lot of measuring of things and trends and monitoring things. And so it's like, it's almost more natural. But for people who it's not natural to measure things, that's a harder lift. And so you got to
Mhm.
measure. But the more, I think, commendable thing that you did for your family, but also as an example to other coaches, is you built up an emergency cushion. And then you built up another emergency cushion of expenses on top of that before you went full time, so that you could have the highest level of confidence because of the risks that the risks, I would say risks that you're taking with your family. And if you hadn't have done that, and if you hadn't had committed to having another path that you built for 2 to 3 years in the interim while you were thinking about this, like when you lost your job, you would have had nothing and you have to start interviewing.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yes.
right? Or start learning entrepreneurship at that point. But you did all the work so that when the real risk from your job came, you were prepared and your family
Yes.
benefited. And I want to say, Carlos, the discipline and commitment that takes, like people don't appreciate how powerful and valuable that is, other than inside your family, even maybe even your wife doesn't, but like you were prepared when the time came, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to
Yeah.
say, like, amazing job. Like
Yeah.
you should be recognized. Like that's hard. That's so hard.
Oh, it was difficult. And not only that, like we've I kind of lost the passion in IT, right? I was just collecting the check. I was just showing
Right.
up. And I knew that yeah, I could probably hang out here for another 20 years and retire from this. But would I be would I
Maybe.
be satisfied with that, right? Would I
Right.
be satisfied with that? And so I think if you have that itch, to start that side hustle, because it's just you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't. And this is an exact example. And just like you said, Daniel, what if I didn't start this? What if I didn't take the risk to start this on the side? And January 17th were to roll around and they cut me loose. I wouldn't have anything else to lean on. I'd be filling out applications right now. I'd be filing for unemployment right now, right? So, yeah, definitely don't take the risk. Start just take those steps, get in the motion of doing those things, because you never know where it could lead. You
Yeah.
never know where that journey is going to take you. You never know what skills you're going to have right now. I feel like with all the skills that I learned, I'm a lot more, not just with my IT skill, but if I were to go back into the workforce, I would have so many other skills right now. I mean, my sales, my marketing, my copyright skills, like I learned so many things where I was just this one guy that did IT stuff. Now I got a vast amount of skills because I decided to be an entrepreneur, you
What
know.
you've done
Uh,
too, Carlos, is you've made yourself more valuable to so many businesses out there.
mm,
If you ever need
mm,
to get a job, you could, because not only did you have all the things you said, but you've also developed the skill of leadership at another level, leadership of
mm,
yourself, leadership of others. And actually, there's an actual value in the marketplace for that, right? Like if like what happens in the corporate world or in most jobs, you have a bunch of people who are technical people or who do a specific job, and then the best of those people ends up going to like manage the team, which may not be the best choice always because they may not have the people skills or the leadership skills to be able to run a team as opposed to do the work. But and that was like my story. But at the end of the day, there's a value people pay that person more because leadership is actually a very valuable thing. And when
mm.
you become a
Yeah,
coach, you're building leadership in yourself. You're building leadership skills. So you still have all your old skills, and maybe you need to update them, but you bring leadership, a value to other businesses should you ever want to be hired, right? And so you
yeah,
can you can get paid for that, extra value in the traditional marketplace too.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's a
exactly.
risk mitigation your wife can know about too. If I ever need to get a job, I'm way better than I used to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can always go back to that, right? You
Right.
can always go back to that. The worst case scenario is that, I go back to that 9 to 5, right? But you never know what's on the other end, and unless you start taking those steps forward, right?
That's
And
right.
I tell you, I don't regret taking any of those steps. I don't regret any of those challenges that I've had to go through, or any of those things. It was all worth it.
Let's get a little more tactical and practical with some of the coaches about things that
Sure.
they should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and maybe some of the things you learned in CMC.
Yeah.
Like what specific things do you think would you tell coaches who are in that earlier stage? Maybe they have a job right now, and
Mhm.
maybe they're building a coaching business, and they're kind of struggling to make it work, or like they're not maybe consistent, or maybe they're not able to close the sales, or maybe they're not even like doing the things they know they should be doing. Like what types of things really worked for you?
Yeah. Well, we talked about one is start measuring everything. I think that's super important. I wish I would have started that a lot earlier. I didn't. I was just shooting at the wind and like, let me reach out to these people, and I wasn't really putting anything down.
How
I
did you measure
wasn't.
things, like specifically? Get specific about that. What that means.
Well, when I first started is just I would have a spreadsheet of all the people that I would reach out to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would measure if I made contact with them, if I got them, if I sent them, if I got them on a discovery call. I would take notes on the conversation, right, and how that went. And even if it was a no or they didn't hire me as a coach, I'd follow up with them. So I'd put them in my spreadsheet and I'd send a follow-up date, right, which would be, a month or 2 months from now, and I'd roll back around. And then I'd roll back around. I'd keep on rolling them. It's like a roller index that I would just keep on contacting everybody in this roller index. So what did that do? That I started to build really strong relationships with these people. I started to build a really strong network with these people because I was talking to them every day. And I wasn't going into these conversations transactional. I was going into them to try to build a relationship, because relationships build sales, right? And so that's what I was doing. I was just trying to build a relationship with them, and then you know you would hit them on that one day, or you would get to them and you'd ask them how they're doing, and they'd have a bad day. It's inevitable. Everyone's going to have a bad season in life. And then they know that, like, hey, Carlos is checking up on me. He's asking me how I'm doing. How's my marriage? How's my relationship? How's my business? He actually cares for me. And so they start talking to you. They start sharing their pain with you. And then that's when I get them on a call. That's when I get them on a discovery. That's when I propose to them, right? So that's what I would do. It started off as a spreadsheet, just with everybody I would make contact with,
So that's not
you
so much
know.
a measurement as much of a tracking mechanism, so you don't lose the people that you're
Y-
connecting with, right? Which
Yeah,
is
it was a
it's a
tracking.
form of measurements.
Yeah, but then again, I had a column with which would be like, okay, I got this person on a discovery call, right? I got this
Mhm.
person. I got this person on a proposal call after the discovery call. So then I started noticing that,
Like a stage
hey,
pipeline stage kind of like
exactly.
column. It's a status column
Yes,
of like where are they in my pipeline, right?
exactly. And
I
what
know
I
exactly what you
noticed,
mean.
yeah, and what I noticed is that out of 11 people that I got on a proposal call, I would get one as a paying client, right? So I knew that.
You
I
had
knew
somewhere
that
else
by
that you were
tracking.
tracking how many proposals you make, because if you have a spreadsheet with a column that is just are they a lead, are they in proposal stage, like you lose track of how many people you made a proposal to because you know who they are, but how do you know how many proposals you made that month?
Yeah,
So you
I would
must be
have.
tracking something else somewhere else too.
Yeah, well, I switched it over to a CRM
Okay.
once it got really complex. But for every single month, I had a different tab. Right. So every month I'd had a different tab. I'd have a different tab for every single month of all the people that I track. And I made it consistent. Like
Gotcha.
I was like, I'm reaching out to 10 people every single day. Right. Every single day I'm reaching out to 10 people. If they reply to me, if they talk to me, I'm going to start a conversation up with them, and they're going into my spreadsheet. Right. And I'm going to keep on talking to them. I'm just going to keep on building a relationship up with them, and try to move them down further into that pipeline. Right.
So you're measuring
So.
everybody in, you're tracking people in a spreadsheet, all the people that you care about or who have responded. And then you have a
Mhm.
monthly tab saying like how many people did I reach out to today? Is that what
Yeah.
you're
How many?
saying?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was per month. Like how many people that
I
I,
meant
I
in that month.
committed
Yeah.
to 10. Yeah, I committed to 10 per day. And so by the end of the month, I had everybody that I reached out to, everyone that I got on a discovery call, everyone that I got on a proposal call, and everyone that hired me as a coach. Right. So that's what I was
It
measuring
probably did
there.
it take you a while to ramp up to the level of 10 a day, or was that pretty quick for you to get 10 a day consistently over a whole month?
Um, I would say, it would depend on how many contacts you had, right? All my marketing, all my sales, and all my reach outs in the beginning were cold. Um, and all I basically did is everybody that was in my social media network, I just we started reaching out to them. Like
That's actually not
I
that
was
cold. That's kind of warm.
yeah, well, that is kind of hard because they saw that I was posting content and things like this, right? Uh, but some of them didn't respond to any of my content, or I've never talked to them in years.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could still consider them warm. So I just started reaching out. At one point, I just listed everybody in alphabetical order, and I was like, okay, first 10. Let me just say hi to everybody. How you doing? Do. Next day, 10. The next 10 on the list. Do. It
And
was
you just
just
like,
like
hey,
that.
how are you doing? Been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. How are you doing? How's the family? And
Cool.
then, as the conversation came, it went further and further,
Did you ever get
and started to build
overwhelmed with like
trust.
how many conversations you had going and losing your mind with like, there's so many things to remember and people, and how do I know who's who anymore?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Not everybody would respond. If I reached out to 10 people, you'd be lucky if you get half of those people responding. They'd be like, "Oh, who's, Carlos reaching out to me?" But, the two or three that do, I would keep the conversation going. And the thing is with social media, you could see the past conversations, right?
Mhm.
So if I log in and I rolled this person back, forward 2 months, and then I go back into the chat that we had, you can see the actual conversation, right? So I can see like, oh, okay, he was having a problem with his relationship a couple months ago, and how'd that go, or his weight, or something, and I can ask about that and continue that conversation, right?
Yep.
So, yeah,
Was it
that's
primarily just
that's
one platform or did you have multiple platforms for people?
yeah. So mainly it was Facebook, and then Instagram, but mainly Facebook and Instagram. But majority was on Facebook. Is where I was reaching out. So that was not so organic, but because I was doing the knocking on the doors per se, right? I
Yeah.
was like 10 people every day, knock, knock, knock. How are you doing? Right. And so the next thing I would suggest is for people starting to coach is one, I think reaching out is great going and not, you're going to have to go through that. You're going to have to go and do cold reach outs. You're going to have to go and reach out to people that probably you haven't talked to in years, right? The thing is, once you get accustomed to reaching out, you have to. For me, I was thinking, I don't want that anymore. I want them to take the first step. I want them to be knocking on my door because they have a problem and they know me, right? So the next thing is that I decided to, or the next step, and what I suggest is start coming up with systems, right? Systems for every process of your business, right? So I was like, okay, I got to come up with a sales and marketing system so that when they see my content or they can relate with this, right? And they take the first step, which is either they comment on something or they like on one of my posts that they took the first step. They actually liked it or commented. So they're taking the first step or they're downloading my lead magnet. So I know they're interested. So then I take the second step. Oh, so how did that relate to you? Or,
What
how
inspired
did you
you to do
resonate with
that?
it? Yeah, exactly. And then I would start the conversation up from there because what I tend to find out was that, okay, I got 2,000 people on my contact list. I'm reaching out to 10 a day. Half of those people, I would say majority of them weren't really interested in what I was doing. They're just being nice and talking to me because I haven't spoke to them in 10 years, right?
Which is also
And
good.
so,
I want
which
to
is
also point
cool.
like
Yeah.
not only did you like reconnect with somebody like and it's a connection that you had and you never know
Yeah.
those connections can come in handy for them or for you at some point in the future. What you've done
Yeah.
is you've formed up your whole network, right?
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
there's a value to that even if they're not becoming clients, right?
Yeah.
There's a human value to that. So I think it's also important people recognize like not all of it's for clients. You can be efficient and realize like I need to focus more on the client stuff too. But
Yeah.
like it doesn't mean don't reach out to people that are, in your network because they're not going to become clients. Like most of the people you reach out to will not become clients anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
but the thing is you want to work on efficiency, right? And you
yes,
said it. So
yes,
if you
as
want to be
well.
efficient, you want to make sure that they take the first step because then that shows more of an interest.
Ideally. But you're
So
talking about
yeah.
levels here. Like the first level is getting
Yeah.
comfortable with
Yeah.
communication. And
Yes.
coaches think
Yes.
they should skip that step, but no, knowing how to communicate with people and build relationships and warm up your network and make them know that you care and actually care about them. And then you get engaged with people. That is actually a skill set. That's
Yeah.
level one. Level
Yeah.
two is the like attracting people. Because if you do
Yeah.
level two first and you start attracting people, you don't know how to have the conversations with them, then you're gonna waste all that the work that you did. So that's why like a lot of coaches think that you should start putting content out there, but they don't know how to have a conversation with people. They don't know how to
Yeah.
keep the conversation going. They don't know how to take it to the next step. And that's why it's so valuable to do the outreach to network in level one. Right. And
Yeah.
we always
Yeah.
recommend starting with your warm network because it's going to be easier to build those reps and those skill sets. And the weights are smaller, right? When you get to level two, like now you're going cold outreach with your content. Those weights are heavier to lift. People aren't as willing to talk to you, right? So you want to have an
Yeah.
momentum and enough skills built and enough confidence to be able to take that step.
Yeah.
So we love that you talked about those two different steps you took. Step one, get good at outreach and communication in your network.
Yeah.
Step two, now we're talking about having them take the first step because of your content. But in level one,
Yeah.
if you're doing content, it's good because they see you're doing something. It doesn't have to be the primary strategy. It can be
Yeah.
helpful for sure, as you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Would you
And not
agree with
only
that,
that,
Carlos? Like, I just want your perspective.
no, no, 100%. And not only that, in level one, when you're doing the reaching out, right? There's so many skills that, like you said, you're not gonna know how to talk to them. A major skill that I had to learn was how to talk in the DMs, right? How to talk in the chats. I think I wrote something and I put it in the CMC what is it? I don't know if it was in
In the
school
Facebook group, you mean,
or
or in our
yeah, and
private member WhatsApp?
yeah, in the private member there because this was a skill I had to learn. I'm like, man, how do I talk to people in the DMs? So I
Hmm.
got this done in level one, so that when I reached the level two, right, when people were actually
It
taking the
was
first
easy.
step, I was already on point. You know, I knew exactly how I needed to lead the conversation. You know,
Yeah. Because if somebody reaches out to you
so
in level two and you don't know how to do the level one skill, like you're gonna lose them.
yeah, you're gonna lose them. You're gonna lose
Possibly.
them
So
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
a lot of things to learn in the level one. But the thing is, I guess one share is definitely reach out, build your network, reach out to the people that are within your network first. I think Faisal even said this, like if you look at the layers of the onion and you pull them back, you wanna start in the the people that are at the core, which are the people that are on your social media, your family, your friends, and working your way out, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's exactly what I did. But uh, build systems, right? Build systems in your process because once you have a system in place, you can actually adjust little parts of the system to make things more efficient.
What was
Uh,
your favorite system that you built? As our last question, because we're running out of time here. Give me an example
yeah,
of a
yeah.
system that you love that you built that was really helpful to you.
I would say my content creation system, right?
Hmm.
I think that was one of the best systems that I built. One is because it's building my brand, right? It's putting my brand out there. So I pick one topic, right? And that's all I write about, create videos about, create content about for 2 weeks, right? So I brainstorm it, I think about it, I do research on it, I think about where it was used in my life, how I was using my life, my emotions going through this, my feelings going through this. I meditate on it, I journal about it before I go to sleep. And then it's like I have this wealth of knowledge, and that's all that's on my mind for 2 weeks. A lot of people switch content every single day,
What a great tip.
which right? It just switches over. Oh, today I'm going to talk about this, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about that and that and that. And so I just take this one topic and I make videos out of it. I make written content out of it. I make magnets out of it. I just everything, listicles out of it, and but it's on this one thing. And then in the next 2 weeks I do the same thing. And so I have a process for this and a process for the day that I actually create the content to get my energy levels up, so that I'm more creative.
So
So
you're
there's
going like what not wide and shallow, but you're going narrow and deep for 2 weeks,
two
right?
weeks. Yeah.
So I
Yep.
love
Narrow
that.
and
That
deep
way
for two
you get
weeks.
excited, and then you have these assets that you've built that can be used forever because they're relevant
Exactly.
to your niche or your audience. And then the audience is like, "Oh, he knows about this, and I'm getting a lot out of this one topic." And so each person who's interested in each of the topics that you do will learn a lot about you each time, right? So I
Yeah.
love that.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
Last
one of
words,
the
parting
systems I
words
built.
before we gotta go here, Carlos. Like anything else you'd share with coaches in the early stages, like to encourage them or just to give them advice. What's the 5 sentence or less, big headline that you would tell them?
Yeah, I would say, if you're starting off as a coach or you want to get in the coaching business, you want to be a better coach, definitely reach out. Find a mentor, find a mastermind like CMC. to jump into, right? Because it's you can do it alone. It's going to take you a lot longer. You're going to make a lot more mistakes. And there's a wealth of knowledge inside the walls of the CMC Mastermind that will help you get a head start. So I would definitely say, work as a team, work as a group, find a community, get around people that are already at a level where you want to be at, and submerge yourself into that. Find out what their systems are, find out what works for them, and then I would say like Frankenstein it, like, oh, I knew that this worked for Daniel. I knew this worked for Faisal. Let me try this, and I would cut those little pieces out and put it into my system. And if it worked, I'd keep it. If it didn't, then I'd let it go, right? But because there was such a wealth of knowledge within the mastermind, there was so many things that I can pick and choose and use and find out what works for me.
I love that.
Systematize it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Carlos, I also want to recognize you as somebody who took action and implemented consistently, even when it was hard. You got through all those layers and all those levels, and I
Yeah.
really just respect you so much for it. And congratulations again on your switch to full time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on here. Would love to do it again.
Thanks for joining the Coach's Journey podcast, Carlos. We'll definitely have to have you again, and maybe we'll talk about some of your systems because that would be really interesting. I think that would be really fascinating for people, even in the content creation or the other systems. We didn't get a chance to cover a lot of it. Maybe we'll have you back on in a little while and talk through some of that. That would be awesome.
Sure, let's do it.
All right,
Thanks,
awesome,
Daniel.
awesome, awesome. What a great episode! I was really inspired by the episode today, Carlos. And if you're listening to this today and you were inspired by Carlos too, or you just want to go forward faster on the journey as a coach, go to cmc.coach, join our free Facebook group, reach out to me or to Faisal, and we'll just get in touch with you. We'll have a conversation with you if you want a little support. We're here. We're here to help coaches. That's what we do. And Carlos, you're such a great example of that. So thank you for having joined our community. Thank you for executing and implementing and being consistent. And thank you for being a coach because we need coaches in the world who are doing great
Yes.
work for people that need help. So thank you
Yeah.
so